A newly unearthed letter reveals Gene Hackman's most haunting truth. It wasn't a farewell or a sentimental note to fans. It was something far more raw. A brutal self-indictment. A man who spent his life avoiding applause, only to realize he was forever chased by the ghost of his own name. For the first and last time, Hackman laid bare his deepest secrets. This letter didn't just shock the world, it shattered the legend. It exposed a scarred soul, a man trapped in the silent torment of his own legacy. If you dare to step into the darkness of Gene Hackman's mind, read on. One day, Gene Hackman left Hollywood without a word. No grand farewell, no media statement, no final interview. The industry only realized he was gone when invitations in 2005 were returned with a short reply. Mr. Hackman respectfully declines. His Beverly Hills home, once a sanctuary of Oscar glory, was suddenly up for sale. A young couple unknowingly purchased a house steeped in the emotions of a legend. Hackman had vanished, leaving nothing behind but an empty space where a titan once stood. His final refuge? Santa Fe, New Mexico, a barren, sunburnt land where he could exist in solitude. No paparazzi, no fanfare, no reminders of the world he once ruled. Neighbors whispered about the ghost in the desert, rarely seeing him, only hearing his pickup truck rumbling down the dirt roads each morning. To those who truly knew him, his retreat was no mystery. "I don't want to die under a flashbulb," he once admitted. It wasn't death he feared, it was the spectacle of it. He locked away his past, burying old photos, refusing to rewatch his film, not out of regret, but because he had left a part of his soul in that world. Now, he wanted to reclaim what remained, but even in silence, whispers linger. Did Hackman ever hear them, carried by the desert winds? In 2011, Hackman sat on his wooden porch in Santa Fe, granting a rare interview with GQ. The scent of burning wood lingered in the air as he spoke, his voice low and weathered. "I dream about my own death more often than I should," he admitted. The film industry never stopped trying to pull him back. Francis Ford Coppola sent him a heartfelt, handwritten letter. Clint Eastwood even drove to Santa Fe, hoping a shared bourbon might rekindle his passion. But Hackman refused, not out of hatred for cinema, but because he understood a hard truth. Reopening closed doors only accelerates their decay. As the years passed, his isolation deepened, yet thoughts of the end clung to him. Then, in 2018, a cryptic handwritten letter surfaced, addressed to his old friend, Dustin Hoffman. No one knew of it until Hoffman revealed its contents. "If one day I disappear, remember I was happy, but not always." A simple message, yet heavy with meaning. A farewell? A confession? Or the quiet echo of a man who once stood atop Hollywood, now stepping into the shadows? Even in his final years, Gene Hackman remained an enigma, a legend who erased his own name, only to leave behind a silence that spoke louder than words. Hackman lived a life of iron discipline, masking his wounds behind humor and toughness. But in his final letter, he unveiled his deepest vulnerability, a man who had everything, yet feared his own existence. His wife, Betsy Arakawa, saw the storms within him, but never pride. Some nights, Gene doesn't sleep. He sits by the window for hours, staring into the dark. "I don't ask. I know there are places in his heart I can never reach," she once confided. The signs of unrest were always there. The letters, the strange dreams, the mornings spent cycling, pausing for long moments in front of the town's small cemetery. Hackman wasn't afraid of dying. His true fear? Being forgotten, or worse, being remembered in a way he never wanted. It was a battle he had fought his entire life. His letter to Hoffman, later framed in Hoffman's home, was perhaps the last memento of a lifelong friendship. "If one day I disappear," but Gene Hackman never truly disappeared. He simply faded, letting his whispers echo into the desert twilight. Then, in January 2024, long after Hollywood had stopped speaking his name, a revelation shook the world. Hidden in his Santa Fe office, untouched for over 15 years, was a secret letter, unknown even to Betsy. It was discovered by Hackman's former assistant, who quietly passed it to a veteran journalist. The envelope, yellowed with time, bore a single line in Hackman's unmistakable handwriting: "For those who care, when I'm no longer here." Inside was a 3-page confession, his final, unspoken truth. Hackman's handwriting leaned slightly to the right, his commas placed just off from standard rules. It wasn't a forgery. This was Gene Hackman's last revelation. "I've always known how my story would end." The first line of Hackman's final letter struck like thunder in the desert. He recounted a night in 1956 when he was just a struggling young man working at a roadside diner. Alone in the kitchen, he heard a voice behind him. Not a customer, not a colleague, but his own voice. Older, distant, yet unmistakably his. "You won't die in Hollywood. You'll disappear in the desert." That moment haunted him for the rest of his life. No Oscar, no role, no standing ovation could erase it. The voice wasn't an illusion. It was a warning, a prophecy. The older he grew, the more he believed it, until it became a truth he could never escape. In his final letter, Hackman's words carried a weight heavier than any of the characters he had portrayed on screen. "When I'm no longer here, you'll finally understand why I left." The letter shook Hollywood to its core. Fans were left stunned, and the industry, accustomed to the larger-than-life image of Hackman, was left trying to piece together the meaning of his cryptic message. Everyone felt its weight, but no one fully grasped its true significance. Gene Hackman, the man who had embodied immortal legends, had carried a secret too heavy for any one person to bear. Yet amidst the echoes of fame and legend, one name appeared more than any other in Hackman's final words. Not Coppola, not Eastwood, not Hoffman, but Betsy Arakawa. Betsy wasn't part of his early life, nor did she stand beside him at his first Oscar win. Yet she was the only one who dared to step into the deepest shadows of his soul, the place where even Hackman himself hesitated to go. A quiet pianist, uninterested in Hollywood's glittering lights, Betsy became his sanctuary. "She's the only one who knows who I really am." More than a wife, Betsy was the keeper of his final secret, the only person allowed to see the man behind the legend. Hackman often called her "my last refuge," the one place where he could finally be himself. It was Betsy who led him away from Hollywood's grasp. She urged him to sell the Beverly Hills home, to turn down comeback offers, and to retreat to a place where no one could find him. Not because they loved the desert, but because Santa Fe was far enough, quiet enough. Gene knew the temptations of Hollywood. He feared that if he stayed too long, he might not recognize himself anymore. Betsy gave him the courage to leave before that could happen. In the end, Gene Hackman's greatest role wasn't one he played on screen. It was the one he played for himself. The man who walked away. The man who disappeared into the desert. Gene Hackman lived with iron discipline, masking his fears with toughness and humor. But in his final letter, hidden for over 15 years, he revealed his deepest fear. Not death, but being forgotten. His true terror was losing Betsy Arakawa, his anchor to reality. "If Betsy is no longer here, I have no reason to stay," he wrote. She wasn't just his wife, she was his last refuge. Haunted by the Hackman family curse, he feared dying alone, like his father. In 2008, he heard his father's voice in the silence of his Santa Fe home, sensing his fate drawing near. When the letter surfaced, it wasn't a farewell, but a raw confession of loneliness and fear. "If you're reading this, I'm already part of the desert wind." Gene never sought fame. He only wanted to leave behind his unspoken truth. In that final whisper, he ensured he would never be forgotten.